One of the things that is often talked about with gun violence is video games, violent video games. Do they play any role in prompting these kind of thoughts and actions in young people in particular? Let's bring in Adam Sessler now, who is editor-in-chief, and executive producer of Rev3 Games. Adam, the basic question first, as somebody who is involved in the gaming industry, do you guys bear any responsibility here?
I think it's tough to say that the game industry bears responsibility, especially in light of the tragedies in Sandy Hook and in Aurora, Colorado. This discussion seems to come up quite a bit. When tragedies like this happen, they do affect kind of a collective social psyche, and I think people tend to go to what feels most alien, what feels most different and changing in the culture and in the society. And in this case, it's video games. This is something that is predominantly enjoyed by young men. And there's almost a way to look at it like it's a new form of language, that if you're not participating in it, it seems alien, strange, and somewhat frightening. And if you go through history, you see many, many instances of this. You have comic books with the book Seduction of the Innocents in, I believe, 1956 by Dr. Frank Wortham. You can find this with the Vatican's problem with opera dating back hundreds of years, that it is kind of the new media, the new form of expression, and it tends to be the repository for blame when horrible things like this happen and everyone's looking for answers.
Is there any sort of real scientific research that you've seen, Mr. Sessler, that speaks to this, whether or not definitively violent video games drive violent thoughts in young men in particular?
No, there's definitely nothing definitive. There are a lot of studies out there, some of which I will personally, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, question just because of where the money is coming that's backing these studies. But there's other objective ones that at the very least they find that it may cause a sense of aggression. But aggression does not make a one-to-one correlation with acting things out. I think we can also say that in any competitive atmosphere, I do not think it's the violence in the games, I think it's the competition in the games. Let's say you're doing a pickup game of basketball with some friends. Let's say you're driving home on the 10 freeway in LA. Those are other things that do bring out some aggression. But once again, it doesn't make this one-to-one correlation that's going to lead to a horrific act of violence.
Right, so the competitive nature is something that we have in many, many areas of our everyday life.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
And it's good to point out that you can play against other people in a competitive way, but other games, and even non-violent games, you're competing against the computer. So there is that sense of sort of a heightened sense of excitement and adrenaline.
All right. What about the simple idea, though, Mr. Sessler, that some parents have, that seeing their child play a game which involves in a fantasy land, murdering people, shooting up a room, it cannot possibly, while it might not drive you to do that thing, it cannot possibly do your brain a heck of a lot of good.
I'm going to leave doing your brain a lot of good to the side, because I think there are still, despite it being violent, and I completely recognize that the popularity of violent video games, but there are... There probably are some healthy aspects of that, the way that you're reading a screen, the way that you're going through problem solving. But more importantly, games are not made for children. I think one of the biggest misnomers we have is calling them games. It does give the impression that it's a toy. It's for someone under the age of 18. These cost $60. They are designed for adults, and they have a rating system that helps explicate this to parents. In fact, one of the most popular games out there is called Grand Theft Auto. And I think for a lot of parents, if your game has the name of a felony in it, it's probably unwise to have your children engage in that. I know parents can't monitor at all times, but I do understand how unseemly it might look to see an 8-year-old playing a game like Call of Duty where you are simulating war. But at the same time, that game is not made for that child. And that's something that I think that the broader public, who may not be as instructed about video games, needs to understand.
Right, once again, a big role for parents in all of this. Adam Sessler, editor-in-chief and executive producer at Rev3 Games, revision3.com, if you want to check out Adam's website. Thank you very much, Adam. Very interesting to talk to you. Good point of view. All right.